I found the pregnancy test on a Saturday morning in the upstairs bathroom, the one only Isla and I used. It was teetering on the rim of the trash bin, as if someone had tried to throw it away, but their hands had trembled too much to push it all the way under the tissues. I stood there for a long time. No blinking, no breathing. A pregnancy test inside my house, but it wasn't mine. 3 years ago, I had let go of the dream of having a child. I lost the baby on a snowstorm morning in January. Caleb, my husband, and I didn't talk much after that. We folded our grief into a drawer and locked it with something called stability. I didn't blame him. Pain couldn't always be split evenly, but I didn't forget either. And right now, what lay before me didn't belong to me. And in this house, there were only 2 women. Me and Isla. Isla called me one early autumn night. When the phone rang, I barely recognized the number. It had been that long. Ellie? Her voice was hoarse, cracking under the wind. I didn't know who else to call. I sat up in bed and turned on the lamp. What's going on? I lost my job 2 months ago. I can't pay rent. My boyfriend, he left, took my savings with him. I've had a few panic attacks this week. They said I need therapy, but I have nowhere else to go, Ellie. I could hear her breathing quicken on the line, like someone trying not to break down. Isla had always been like that. No matter how fragile or wrong she was, she knew how to soften people. I was quiet for a while. Part of me thought I should say no. We were never close, never had been. Isla was the kind of person who took what didn't belong to her, and I was the kind who learned to step back. As kids, our mother always made me give Isla the toy first. She's younger. You're the big sister. As we grew up, Isla smiled at my boyfriend at parties, and one day, he texted me a breakup message. I think I'm more compatible with your sister. I said nothing. I never said anything. I had gotten used to the idea that the things that were mine never truly stayed mine. But that night, her voice sounded like a soaked kitten knocking at the door. I remember saying softly, "You can come here." I picked Isla up at Seattle Airport 3 days later. She wore an oversized gray coat, her hair a mess, her face pale. She walked like someone just out of the hospital. I almost didn't recognize my sister. She hugged me tightly, too tightly, and for too long. "Thank you. I don't deserve this, Ellie. I know I've disappointed you in so many ways." I didn't answer. I just nodded and opened the car door. When we got home, I cleaned out the room we had once planned to turn into a nursery. I didn't think I'd ever open that door again. But that night, I turned on the lights, changed the sheets, and placed the softest pillow at the head of the bed. I made her the chicken soup she used to like, left a light sedative next to a glass of water, kept the porch light on all night, told Caleb not to ask anything, just to stay quiet. A part of me wanted to believe Isla had changed, that if you gave someone shelter long enough they'd learn not to set fire to it. Then this morning I found the pregnancy test, and it told me something else. Not about Isla, not about Caleb, but about me. That I had been wrong to believe a heart could be a refuge for just anyone, simply because they knocked at the right time. Since that Saturday morning, the house didn't feel the same anymore. The wooden floors still felt warm beneath my feet each morning. The coffee machine still hummed its usual rhythm. Caleb still sat at the kitchen counter with a photography magazine in hand. But somehow, everything felt quieter, as if someone had turned off the background noise that made a home feel alive. And in that silence, I began to hear things I had never noticed before. I said nothing to Isla. Not because I thought she was innocent, but because I wanted to watch. When you begin to listen with instinct instead of ears, the truth loses its hiding place. I remembered a few weeks back. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, Isla stood leaning against the kitchen doorway, cradling a cup of ginger tea, her eyes lazily drifting around the room. "How much did this house cost you?" I looked up. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged, smiling softly. "Just curious." I was thinking, if I ever get back on my feet, I'd want a quiet place like this too. I smiled, not thinking much of it. It wasn't cheap, but I bought it when the market was still decent. Took nearly 10 years of payments. Isla nodded thoughtfully, her eyes pausing on the marble countertop, then sweeping across the bookshelf, the wall art, and even the Bluetooth speakers Caleb loved. Caleb must have contributed a lot too, right? He seems financially savvy. I hesitated for a second. I'm the sole owner. I've always handled the finances. Isla pressed her lips together and said nothing more. She just sipped her tea. But that gaze, quick, selective, resting on every object with worth, now I knew it had never been casual. I began to change, not with anger, not with accusation, but with deliberate silence. I worked from home more, cleaned more thoroughly, watched Isla's eyes each time Caleb left the room, listened to every footstep down the hall, and slowly, little things began to crack like fractures in glass. Isla often left the house in the evenings, saying she needed fresh air, but she never took her wallet, only her phone. She started wearing things I'd tucked away in the back of my closet: the beige cashmere sweater, the smoky gray scarf, even the old perfume I hadn't touched in years. One Sunday morning, I caught Caleb and Isla huddled in front of the laptop, laughing at some video. Isla brushed his arm, a fleeting touch, but enough to make me freeze. Caleb looked up and smiled at me, but Isla didn't. That night, Caleb said he couldn't sleep and left the bedroom. I woke at 3 a.m., the living room dark, but Isla's bedroom door was slightly ajar. I didn't say a word, didn't confront. I simply opened my laptop and typed a single line. She doesn't need a place to stay, she needs a place to claim. That night, I lay in the dark. No tears, no fury. Just the sensation of each breath peeling off an old skin. The skin of a sister, a wife, a woman who once believed kindness was impenetrable. But now I knew. Kindness without boundaries is a gift no one values. I stopped going out as much, canceled work dinners, shifted meetings online, spent longer wiping down counters, dusted the living room with care I hadn't shown in years. I lived quietly between two people I once called family, like a guest in my own life, waiting for the scene to end. And then the little things began to unmask themselves. One morning, I made coffee for the three of us. Isla was up earlier than usual, her soft curls tied back with a green scrunchie I often wore, the one Caleb once said made me look so Seattle. She smiled and took the cup from me, turning to Caleb. "You want to try on that sweater I got? I ordered the wrong size, but I think it'll fit you." I paused. "You," she said, "not Caleb, just you," like they had become a team. The last time Isla referred to a man that way was with her ex in Chicago, the one who emptied her bank account and disappeared. I looked at Caleb. He sipped his coffee, unfazed. No correction, no surprise, only silence. And silence, real silence, is the most discreet kind of conspiracy. That night, after Isla had gone to her room and Caleb was reading, I stepped into our bedroom. "Do you think Isla's doing better?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Yeah, seems like it. She looks much better now." I nodded. "And don't you think something's off?" He put the book down and turned to me. "Off? Yeah, I just feel like something doesn't fit." He chuckled, short and soft. "Maybe you're overthinking it. She's been through a lot. Don't stress yourself." And that was what made me most uneasy. When people betray you, they don't lie blatantly. They say things that make sense. So much sense, it makes you feel insane for doubting them. I didn't reply. I just smiled, turned off the light, and rolled over. That night, I lay awake in the dark, not sleeping, just counting each breath. Somewhere in this house, truth was curled up behind the curtain like a snake. And I knew it would slither out soon enough. I started to realize that Isla wasn't trying to hide anymore. Each morning, she stepped out of her room with her hair gently blow-dried and a faint scent that lingered just long enough for me to recognize it. Mesa Margiela, the bottle I kept tucked away in my bedroom drawer. She didn't ask, didn't sneak. She just wore it like it was part of her allotted share of my kindness. And then, on a Thursday afternoon, I came home earlier than expected. They weren't in the living room, not in the kitchen. No sound from the TV, no footsteps. I didn't call out. I simply walked quietly down the second-floor hallway, my slippers soft enough to make the wood floors silent. Caleb's door was ajar, a gentle yellow light spilling out like someone had turned on a night lamp in the middle of the day. I stopped, just close enough to hear. I can't keep living off of her forever, Caleb. I need to stand on my own. I need you. Isla's voice, sweet but sharp like a thread-thin needle sliding beneath skin. A pause. Then Caleb's voice, low and brief. I'm not ready for that. I stepped back, just once. But it felt like my entire chest slid with that one motion. That evening, Isla didn't come down for dinner. Caleb was quieter than usual. I set the table, plated the salmon, poured the sauce as if I hadn't heard a thing. What mattered was, they didn't know I knew. And that was when the one holding the truth quietly became the one in control. 2 days later, the clue revealed itself. Not through words, but through a small envelope left sitting on the shoe rack beside Isla's purse. It wasn't hidden in a drawer, not locked away. It lay exactly where I would find it, as if she wanted me to. I picked it up. Inside was a credit loan application. Her personal details were filled in, and under the guarantor section it read, Caleb Hartman, freelance photographer. I clenched the paper in my hand, scanning the reason for loan line. Startup funds for an online fashion boutique, a project I'm building with my partner. Her partner. I read it again. This time I saw the thin, slanted handwriting, carefully crafted to look professional, but smudged with ego. Isla didn't forget this form. She left it there on purpose, for me to see. She wanted me to know she had taken Caleb, and that I was now the outsider in the story I used to write. That evening, I made chamomile tea for the three of us. Isla came down in a white silk dress, one I'd folded neatly to donate long ago. Somehow it had found its way back into my closet, or hers. She smiled, eyes glinting. Chamomile? You still remember I like this? I nodded, poured each cup. Then without a word, I placed the loan form in the center of the table. Isla glanced at it, then at me. Her face didn't change. No denial, no surprise. Just a slight tilt of her head, as if this was the moment she had been waiting for. I found it next to your bag, I said, tone as calm as a newsreader. She gave a small laugh. Sorry, must have slipped out. You know, I'm just trying to start over. With Caleb? I asked it plainly. No inflection, no accusation. She said nothing. Caleb set down his cup. Eleanor? I raised a hand to stop him. You don't need to explain. I heard you Thursday upstairs. Isla inhaled deeply. Then she sat straighter, no longer pretending. You've always had everything, Ellie. The house, a loving husband, a steady job, and me? I've been lost, broken, and now I'm just trying to claim back a small piece of that happiness. She paused, then added softer, but sharper. Caleb's been with you long enough. Maybe it's time he chooses again. I looked at Isla, the same sister who once cried in my arms at the airport, fragile, trembling, pathetic. Now she sat in silk, her gaze cool and triumphant, like someone who had just checkmated the queen. I didn't say a word. I stood, took my coat, and walked out the door. The Seattle night bit through my coat like a warning, but I didn't feel it, because I knew, starting tomorrow, I would no longer be the outsider. I would walk back in, not to reclaim anyone, but to reclaim truth and freedom. I left them in the house I once called home. The wind ran through my hair like unspoken words. I don't know how far I walked, only that if I'd stayed 1 minute longer, I would have burned down everything with my silence. When I came back, the house was quiet, the kitchen lights still on. Caleb was gone. Isla sat alone at the dining table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea gone cold, like someone waiting for applause at the end of a long performance. I walked straight toward the bedroom, but her voice called out behind me, soft enough to chill. I think you should know one more thing. I stopped, didn't turn, I'm pregnant. 3 words dropped like stones into still water. No echo, no ripple, just a slow, heavy sinking. I turned, slowly. She remained seated, not frightened, not trembling. She looked satisfied, like she had just laid down the final card in her game. "How far along?" I asked, my voice so unfamiliar I almost didn't recognize it. "About 6 weeks." Isla shrugged. "I haven't told Caleb yet. I wanted to tell you first." "Why? Because you thought I'd back down once a child was involved?" She didn't answer, but her silence said yes. I gave a small laugh, cold, hollow. "Then you don't know me at all." I turned again, and this time I didn't stop. Behind me, the kitchen returned to silence. And Isla, with a belly that might have held a truth or a lie, stayed frozen, waiting to see if she had won the final round. But I already knew the answer. What was growing inside her wasn't a child. It was ambition. I couldn't take one more night. This house, the one where I folded every towel, chose every wall color, arranged every book, now echoed with the soft laughter of 2 traitors, as if I didn't exist. Isla moved in and out of Caleb's room like it was routine, no permission, no pretense. Her wet hair draped over one shoulder as she sat next to him on the couch. And Caleb no longer turned away when I walked into the room. Now he just stayed silent. And silence is the clearest confession of all. I had tried to stay calm. I had wanted to handle things like an adult. But when I came down the stairs that Wednesday evening and saw Isla wearing Caleb's white shirt, unbuttoned just enough, one leg crossed over the other as she ate a peach from my fridge like she owned the place, I knew I had reached my limit. "Take that shirt off," I said. My voice was low, even, not a single quiver. Isla turned, eyes wide with theatrical surprise. "What?" "That shirt belongs to Caleb. And this is my house. You don't get to pretend you're living someone else's life." Caleb walked into the kitchen from behind, holding a water bottle. He looked at me but said nothing. I turned to him. "Are you going to say something? Or let me guess, you think I'm overreacting?" Isla set the peach down on the counter and stood up, her voice rising. "I've tried to be civil, Ellie. I apologized. I told you I was pregnant. Do you think I'm here to destroy your family? I was at rock bottom. I needed a way out." "A way out?" I laughed, sharp and joyless. "And your way out was my husband's bed?" Caleb stepped forward, placing a hand on Isla's shoulder, a gesture that stabbed into me like a knife. "Stop, Eleanor," he said. "This happened. No one planned it, but it happened." I looked at the 2 of them. Part of me wanted to shatter, but another part, the one no one had ever seen, stood tall. "Fine," I said, voice solid as stone. "Then pack your things, both of you. Get out of my house, tonight." Isla let out a dry laugh and walked closer. "You can't do that. I'm pregnant." "I don't care," I said slowly. "If you had the nerve to steal my husband, you should have the nerve to ask him to rent you an apartment." "Caleb won't let me go," she said, turning to him. "You won't, will you?" Caleb didn't look at me. He nodded, barely. "If she goes, I go." I didn't cry. I just exhaled, long and deep. "Then go. Both of you. Be gone before midnight." They left. No shouting, no begging, just a suitcase dragging, a door opening, and the final closing sound of what once was called a family. I thought that would be the end of it. But less than an hour later, the phone rang. "My father." I answered, my hand still trembling from adrenaline. "Eleanor?" Isla called. "You kicked her out? When she's pregnant?" I closed my eyes. "Do you know what she did?" "I know she was wrong," he cut in, voice sharp. "But she's your sister. She has nothing. And you have a house, a career, everything. And you couldn't give up one man?" I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," he said. "You'll find someone else. But Isla's having a child. She needs Caleb. You need to learn to sacrifice, like a sister should." A laugh escaped me, sharp as broken glass. "I sacrificed my childhood. I gave up my toys, my friends, my boyfriends. And now you want me to give up my husband, the home I bought with my own money? Don't be selfish, Eleanor. You're the older one. You should understand." I ended the call. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. There was only one thing I knew for certain. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Caleb hadn't expected things to fall apart this badly. At least not in the beginning, when he packed his things and walked out of the house. Isla stood by the window of their temporary rental, swirling her teacup like she was on vacation at a boutique resort. She told him everything would be fine, that he deserved a woman who truly understood him, someone who didn't control him, who wasn't cold like Eleanor. She promised they'd rebuild from the ground up, step by step. Caleb wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that he hadn't left a good woman behind for nothing but an illusion. But reality doesn't stay painted forever. Soon, the cracks began to show. Isla didn't know how to cook, didn't know how to manage money, didn't work. She slept in late every morning, opened her laptop, and said she was researching the online boutique market, though she had no clear plan. She used Caleb's credit card to order all sorts of things for the pregnancy: herbal teas, prenatal vitamins, maternity clothes. She complained of headaches, dizziness, demanded Caleb cancel shoots to take her to appointments. Caleb hesitated but didn't refuse, partly because guilt still hung above him like smoke, partly because of the baby. But as life closed in, as clients dried up, projects stalled, and rumors started to spread, he began to realize no one wanted to work with the guy who left his wife for her sister. One night, after receiving an email canceling a long-standing collaboration, complete with a carefully worded line, "We're looking for someone whose personal image aligns better with our brand," Caleb dropped the phone onto the table, buried his head in his hands. Isla was still lounging on the couch, giggling at TikToks on her phone. "Do you think maybe it's time you got a job again?" Caleb asked. Isla didn't even look up. "I'm pregnant, remember? I need rest." Plenty of pregnant women still work. This time, she looked up, her face tightening. "So now you want me to work while carrying your child? Honestly, I'm not even surprised. Eleanor used to say things like that too, cold, logical, heartless." Caleb didn't answer. But in that moment, Eleanor's name suddenly felt comforting, familiar. The truth broke through during a clinic visit downtown. Isla insisted on going in alone. "I want some privacy," she said. But the door didn't fully close. And the doctor, perhaps accidentally or perhaps knowingly, said something that made Caleb go cold. "I adjusted the gestational age like you asked, but if anyone questions it, I'll have to tell the truth. I don't want to be part of any ethical mess." Caleb froze in the hallway. When Isla came out, cheerful, holding her file with that practiced smile, he didn't look at her the same way. That evening, over a quiet dinner, Caleb finally asked, "Is the baby mine?" Isla froze. "Caleb, are you accusing me?" He said nothing. Just looked at her, the way he used to look at Eleanor during an argument. But this time, his eyes carried a disappointment too heavy to hide. Isla began to yell. She accused him of being ungrateful, compared herself to Eleanor, said he should feel lucky she chose him over her wealthy, emotionally distant ex. That was when Caleb finally understood. The child wasn't his, and he had only ever been a lifeboat, something Isla clung to so she wouldn't drown. 2 days later, Caleb left the apartment. No goodbye, no backward glance. Isla called, texted, threatened, banged, but he'd turned everything to silent. He crashed on a friend's couch, canceled his social media contracts, shut down his professional Instagram. Everything he'd once built, his image, his reputation, his career, slipped away like film unraveling from a broken reel. And in the dark of that unfamiliar guest room, Caleb finally admitted something. The only person who had ever believed in him, protected him, and seen him as he truly was the woman he had pushed out of his life. But it was too late. Eleanor wasn't coming back. She didn't need revenge, because life had already done it for her, quietly, precisely, and without mercy. Ever since Caleb left with Isla, I haven't checked his social media, haven't opened a single message from her, haven't tried to find out how they're doing. You don't need to intervene. when life has already chosen to pass judgment. I just kept living. The house, haunted by fake laughter, cautious footsteps, and glances that avoided mine, was now being cleaned, piece by piece. I changed the curtains, got rid of the old sofa, reorganized the shelves, took down each picture frame, every keepsake that no longer meant anything. I hung a blank wooden frame in the center of the living room wall, where our wedding photo used to be. I didn't replace it with anything. I left it empty. A void meant to remind me, not all spaces need to be filled. Some exist to remind us of what once was, and what must never be again. One morning, while watering the plants on the balcony, a message popped up on my phone screen. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't even surprised. It was from Isla. I know you hate me. I understand, but I was wrong. I truly was. Caleb left me. He said I lied. Can you give me somewhere to start over? I have no one. I read it over and over again. No anger, no sympathy, just the sensation of watching a road I once walked collapse exactly as I had feared it would. I set the phone down, didn't reply, not because I was cruel, but because I understood. Forgiveness does not mean letting someone come back just to break things again. I sold that house 2 months later, moved into a smaller apartment by the lake, quiet, just enough sunlight, a balcony for lavender and rosemary. I signed up for painting classes again. Every night I brewed mint tea, played soft jazz, and painted in tones I had long forgotten. Burnt umber, moss green, ash gray. The colors of memories dried out but never decayed. Some nights I still dream, not about Caleb, not about Isla, but about myself, the girl who didn't know how to set boundaries, who once believed endurance was love, who thought losing something meant she had failed. That girl isn't here anymore. I heard Caleb ended up crashing on friends' couches. As for Isla, no one knows exactly where she is. A few whispers online say she was evicted by a roommate for skipping rent. None of her exes have spoken to her since. Everything she tried to steal from me, a man, a home, a chance to start over, slipped through her fingers like sand. And I didn't have to do a thing. Didn't have to raise my voice. What was never yours can't be held through lies. And what's truly yours will return in the right time, the right way. I no longer need to win. I just need to never betray myself again.